Okay, everybody, I think we're going to start. We'll start by going around the campuses and making sure everybody can hear. Just as a reminder, in case we do lose the video, as long as we have the audio, we will continue. If we lose the audio, we have a 10-minute effort to try and reestablish that, and if that doesn't work, we call the whole thing off. Nobody celebrates, okay? All right, let's go over to West. Can you hear us, West?
Yes, loud and clear.
Great. Okay. Downtown? I think everybody, I got a high sign from downtown. Okay. Polly?
We're all good. We're
Polly?
here and hear you well.
Okay. Then I think we're all set to get started. Then let's go ahead and do the quorum calculation. So Chuck, if you would put in...
This thing is behaving weirdly.
Should we vote early and often?
Can't change that.
Somebody at the other campuses might want to mute their...
Oh.
Not sure you want us to hear everything you're saying about us, so... Yeah, we are a little low. Yeah, go ahead and close it. Well, we have interesting times, I heard, but anyway. However, the correct answer is, in fact, run, hide, and fight, and we will talk about that a little bit later. Run, hide, or fight, excuse me. Okay. So I'd like to start by introducing Eileen Klein, who is president of the Arizona Board of Regents. And she has a few words she'd like to say.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to join you again and to update you on a few things happening at the Board of Regents. I had the pleasure of meeting you once or twice over the past couple of years as the board president. I am the full-time CEO for the Board of Regents. You had a chance to hear from our chairman, who's the appointee by the governor and has been selected by his peers to lead the board. I am here to give you a couple of updates on our board business that's upcoming. I think it was very appropriate. That's how we started the meeting. We have spent the better part of the opening of this legislative session debating the appropriate campus safety practices. We have worked very hard to defeat a bill that would have defined very broadly non-lethal weapons and would have imposed the NATO definition of non-lethal weapons, which has a great overlap with the Department of Defense definition of non-lethal weapons, all of which we find to be extremely concerning, whether they are considered to be lethal or not. So we have worked very diligently at the legislature to try to block the legislation absent some significant amendment. Having said that, I expect that the Board of Regents will want to take up the policy. It might be time for each of our campuses to have an opportunity on the heels of the campus safety review that we did about 4 years ago now to take a look at the policies about what non-lethal weapons should be permitted on campus. These are, to be clear, considered to be personal protection devices. So there has been an effort by the Taser company as one of the proponents to allow tasers on campus. And whether that ultimately turns out to be the will of the campuses and the campus leadership, we do believe it's time for the board to take up that policy and make some determinations in concert with the university presidents and with the council of our university police force. That is one of our concerns about the legislation that was moving through, that it did not have ample voice from the students or our campus safety leaders. And so we are eager to have a more fulsome discussion about what campus safety practices should be and what personal protection devices should be allowed. I expect the board could take that up as soon as April, and so we'll definitely make sure that you're attuned to that. This week, I'll switch back to board business for a couple of minutes. This week, I expect that the tuition hearings will go as they do every year. We'll have a statewide tuition hearing using the same type of technology that you use, whereby we take comments from anyone who's interested in the community about the tuition proposals. As you know, Arizona State University has proposed a 0% increase for incoming freshmen. It would also be 0% increase for those already attending if they are undergraduates, with a host of other changes. There will be some changes to fees, and there will also be consideration of other differentiations within programs and within types of students, international students and out-of-state students being specific classes who would face increases. But for undergraduate resident students, they would not face any increases. I appreciate the leadership of Arizona State to create long-term commitments. Each of our universities has now some sort of a tuition guarantee program. And while ASU's is not as firm as what you see at the other two universities, I think you do have some advantage in that we can come in and really look at the business case around tuition. You may have questions on that, and I'm happy to answer questions on that. But I am also working closely with the board and encouraging the board to take up multi-year tuition setting. Going through this exercise every single year is painful I know for you, for campuses, certainly for the students and their families, for the public and for policymakers. And so now that we've reached some relative period of stability in terms of our finances, it would be very helpful if we could move to a multi-year tuition setting mode. I had worked closely with President Crow on that a few years back, and then we were unexpectedly cut by the legislature, which knocked us off track for being able to make those changes in policy, but we're going to take it up again, and our chair is very supportive of that effort, again, just so we can increase the long-term predictability and stability of tuition setting for our students and their families. A couple of other quick updates. We will have a tuition workshop later this week where the regents will sit for several hours and go through in detail all the business cases around tuition setting. In the past couple of years, we've established the workshops to make very clear what tuition dollars will be used for, what other efficiencies might be garnered in lieu of tuition, and ultimately to understand how those dollars will be applied for each university. Those decisions then roll up to the budget decisions for the universities that get approved by the board in June. All of those operating decisions are separate from whatever the legislative appropriations are. I expect the legislature to maintain a relatively flat level of appropriation for the universities. We're trying very hard to hang on to the total dollars that we have in the base, and also to make some progress on getting relief on the Health Insurance Trust Fund. We are part of the state employee health insurance program, as you're aware. We have received unequal charges for the costs of state employee health insurance, not just disproportionate charges for the cost of coverage for all of our employees, but also in proportion, in comparison, I should say, to other state agencies. On top of that, the legislature has swept repeatedly from the fund that we use to pay for health insurance claims, and so consequently we have had really a major impact from those policy practices by the legislature, and we're very eager to stop the sweeps, which now total over a couple of $100 million, and also to make sure that any of the cost increases are really truly due to the costs associated with our program. Long term, we'd like to run our own program the way NIU does, but I don't anticipate we'll make progress on that with the legislature this year. And then finally, we are, in addition to the campus safety bill at the legislature, we're also working closely with the proponents of the free speech bill, and we are trying to make sure that whatever gets passed obviously upholds our strong commitment to free speech. It is very hard to rewrite any kind of legislation that doesn't somehow wind up inadvertently constricting free speech, and so we've been working with the proponents to make sure that we stick as close to the Constitution and to federal court rulings in that regard so that we don't wind up inadvertently, again, constraining speech. We're not like other states around the country where this movement has really fomented, as you know, where there's a lot of interest in trying to further expand speech. We already have free speech here on our campuses. We don't have free speech zones, and so we want to be very careful that the laws work favorably for us, and that if there are issues on other campuses, that somehow we're not swept up in those. So maybe with that, I will pause there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, do we have questions from downtown?
Questions? No, we're fine, thank you.
Polly?
No questions here.
West? Any questions?
Yes, we do have a question from West. Can we learn more about the content of the free speech bill, please?
Absolutely. What's in the free speech bill? It is an effort that was brought by an outside group. You may be familiar with some of the national groups and national networks who want to assure free speech rights on campus. It will make very clear that we are to have free speech policies. It will also set up a free speech committee, and it will require that it will apply an automatic penalty for violations. We've been working very hard to get rid of the automatic penalties for violations because we can see great potential for those to become a nuisance. But in essence, it is an effort to articulate that free speech is valued, but it also goes so far as to define that one of the purposes, if not the purpose of the university, is to promote free speech. So we are not entirely satisfied with the architecture of the bill, but it is greatly improved from its original introduction, and we're working very hard also to make sure that our campus policies are as strong as they can be with respect to free speech, because that is a big motivator for outside groups who want to come in. I really see this bill as being foundational to more of a national effort. I think they want to start legislation here that could be model legislation for around the country. Most of the challenges, you know, are not with public universities like ours. They're with other colleges, but nonetheless, I expect a bill will pass and that it will pass handily. So we're doing our best to make it as good as it can be.
Last week, I think it was, in the news, it came out that there was a bill that is being proposed in the legislature to break up the regions into 3 separate boards for the universities and placing the universities really under the thumb of the legislature. Can you speak to that?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. There was a bill introduced early this session by Representative Mark Fincham. He's a legislator from the Saddlebrook area near Tucson. This is about his 3rd or 4th effort to get legislation introduced that would somehow reorganize the Arizona Board of Regents. And this year he introduced a bill. The bill was not heard, but the bill came back up in the Natural Resources Committee, where things like water legislation are contemplated. And so we went down to the legislature last Monday to testify not for the bill or against the bill. I testified neutral on the bill. The board doesn't have a position on the bill. Ultimately, the Board of Regents is a constitutional body, but all of their responsibilities are set by statute. It's really the prerogative of the legislature to decide what duties they want to assign and to whom. But I did speak at length about many of the concerns that we have. The bill itself is about 300 pages long. It is now being put onto as a strike everything amendment. One of the points I made to the legislature is that that is probably not the best way to go about reorganizing the public higher education system, and that we think more stakeholders should be involved. There are a lot of concerns about board capacity. As the universities have gotten larger, there's a common conversation at the Capitol about the extent to which the board can properly oversee the universities. I'm very pleased with the changes we've made over the past several years, which greatly heighten the oversight and governance of the board. Having said that, there are legislators who absolutely believe the universities should each be governed by an individual board. And this particular bill would make each of those boards roll up to a common board, and that board would be the governor, the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. And they would be responsible for overseeing the university system. So highly impractical, but having said that, we have taken the issue, straightforwardly. We want to talk about the relative, positives and negatives associated with having local governing boards. For my part, having worked at this now steadily for 5 years, I would be extremely concerned about a complete devolution to only local control. is that although you would enjoy a very big advantage here at ASU in terms of size and ability to persuade, ultimately we need 3 successful public universities in Arizona, and frankly we need more outlets of opportunity for students. And so we want to be sure that our universities benefit from competition, but healthy competition, and going into competition with one another for state resources probably is not the way to get that done. So I think that would greatly alter not just the trajectory of the system, but really the type of university system that we have and the type of universities that we have. So we will see ultimately what happens with that bill. I don't expect that bill to move any further. I think it will be blocked from further action in the Senate, but I do expect we'll have other things pop up in the state budget that will either put more requirements on the Arizona Board of Regents as it exists today, or make some other changes. So to be determined, but I appreciate you bringing that up because that is obviously central to how we operate as a system. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Dave Wells, Senator from FLIS. First, for senators, if you want to try to voice in on that bill, you probably should contact either J.D. Mesnar, the Speaker of the House, or your own representative from the House, because it is a striker. It'll go to the House floor next. Again, my experience, along with Ms. Klein, is that these lone wolf attempts are not successful. You need a broader stakeholder effect. Okay, now my question is, and this is one I asked Bill Ridenour a month or 2 ago as well, is our state constitution says that it should be as close to free as possible to attend these universities. Our Attorney General has sued you because in violation of that, but not sued our legislature. Now, the ABOR came up with a plan that the legislature should fund half of the cost of residential students. The legislature is currently funding about 1/3. They would need about $250 million in order to meet that. And I actually study the Arizona legislature in the budget. Be presenting on that in San Francisco this week. And I don't see that money coming in any time in the near future, regardless of how much economic growth that we have. So what is the kind of response ABOR is going to have if the legislature refuses to acknowledge and step up to the plate?
All right, well, thanks for that great question and great background that you offered. It is tough sledding when it comes to getting the 50-50 split that we've asked for. Importantly, though, we have repositioned the request for state funding around students instead of institutions. That part policymakers like. Writing the check, that's not been as popular. But having said that, at this point, the state has so much pent-up demand for so many services coming out of the Great Recession that it will be hard for them to prioritize at the level that we would like. One good thing about, there's some good and bad about Proposition 301 having been extended by the legislature this week. The good is that it's settled. That will help assure people that the dollars will continue. What it does, though, is remove the voter protection requirement, so that will put university funding as part of Proposition 301, that's the sales tax money, into flux. Going forward, I think the universities and others in the education community largely will have to continue to rely on ballot support if they're going to augment the funding significantly, because we need a major increase, as you pointed out, more than $200 million just to fund the resident student formula, and our state doesn't even have any kind of statewide tuition assistance program the way that other states do. So all the way around, there needs to be more thinking about how to get more dollars. It's very likely that the ballot would need to be used in future election cycles, and it would be important too to make sure that our community colleges are well funded. Right now, our large community colleges have no support from the state, and we are ever more dependent on them for transfer students and for our success, and really they are a first choice more and more for many of our students. So there needs to be a more comprehensive approach for higher ed. With our budget sitting as an unprotected area of state budgeting, then we're going to have to be on defense, but I do think we need to sit down and think about what opportunities we have to go to the ballot in the future.
Very much,
Great.
President Klein. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thanks for the time.
Okay, our next speaker is Jim O'Donnell, who wants to give us an update on the library situation.
Thank you and good afternoon. I've been watching the clock on the wall, and I'm happy to say that my remarks will take no time at all. Three news items from the library in descending order of visibility, I suppose. First of all, the construction fence went up around Hayden Tower on the 5th of March. Demolition is progressing through the tower. We are pleased that we are getting the full gut and reno of that very tired old building that we have been looking forward to and planning for. When it opens again, you won't recognize it. Maybe the most visible feature will be that doors will be open again on the tower, and you won't have to crawl through the sun-blasted underground entrance in order to get anywhere in the building. Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, the classrooms on the lowest level will open fall of 19, and the building as a whole will open just about 2 years from now, or maybe even a month or so less than that. This has necessitated considerable reallocation of time and effort. And books. About 600,000 of our books are now residing comfortably in Noble Library, mainly core humanities and some social science, our greatest hits. We have a grant from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation to help us design more intentionally what the print collection in the new Hayden Tower will be like. It will be small, but it will be choice, and it will be designed to be of maximum use to researchers and maximum attractiveness and use and engagement for a new generation of students. In the meantime, we are taking very good care of the books that have gone out. They're in or moving into our high-density shelving facility at the Poly campus, where the temperature is 50 degrees and the humidity is 35%, and the books just absolutely love it and will, in fact, live 200 years longer in that atmosphere than they would in normal room temperature. Second, many of you will have been as frustrated as I am in the course of this year with our new IT system, the catalog and OneSearch system that we rolled out on the 1st of July. It's best of breed, it's best practice, it's the wave of the future, and it needs work. And I will simply say that the CEO of the company recognizes my name on his caller ID, and we are continuing to work. We've made significant progress this year. We welcome complaints, we really do. If we don't know what's bugging you, we can't bug them enough. So I would be happy to hear from you. I have what I think is the simplest email address in the university, jod@asu.edu. Please do let me hear from you in that regard. Last thing I will say is that we're working with the Senate's Library Liaison Committee, chaired by no relative Professor Catherine O'Donnell from Shippers, and getting some very good work now, particularly in consultation with Gustavo Fishman from the Mary Lou Fulton School, studying and preparing to make proposals that will probably come to you in eventual order for how we can support faculty open access publishing in the institution through making sure that we are synergizing, that we're not simply all trying to invent solutions to the problem in 7 different places, but that if there are common systems, common services that we could offer that would make it easier for faculty to make their research widely known and to improve the effectiveness of distribution of research, we'd like to be able to do that. Expect the committee report at the end of the year to speak to that, and we'll be addressing that issue next year. As I said, no time at all. Time for questions?
I think so. Let's see if we have any questions. Questions from downtown?
No questions from here.
Holly?
No questions here.
Okay. West? Anything from West?
We are fine.
Okay. We have a question here.
It's just a query. So I'm Aviral from computer science, and you're right about the search one. Sometimes I've used Google and it can find the document that I'm looking for, but not the search. So my question was that why don't we just open up the catalog to Google and let it crawl through the database, and that is enough? Why do we need our own search?
2 answers to that, one of which is there are many aspects of the system that we need to have and we need to have under our control and to use. Okay, we are well aware that many of you, though, are using Google Scholar and getting to the place where you need to go. And do you know about Copernio? Drop me a note if you want to know. If you use Google Scholar, Copernio is a browser extension that automatically searches for freely available PDFs of anything that comes up on your on your Google Scholar screen, and I use it. It's particularly effective. We're trying to make sure that we can direct students especially, but faculty, to the resources that we bring together at considerable expense that are not available otherwise. Right now, Google is not interested enough in doing that to be a reliable partner. We don't discourage people from using them, but we think at least for this generation, which is probably, you know, what's the generation now, 5 to 7 years, for this period of time, we need to have and improve the discovery tools that connect you to our print, to our digital, to all of our resources. It's a shifting environment, and I'm in regular contact with some of the players about what that next generation will look like, and if we can find a way to pounce on it, we will. Thank you. Thank you all.
And our next speaker is going to be Aaron Krasnow, who's going to be responding to some of the questions we've had about graduate student benefits, really spousal benefits.
Afternoon, everyone. I know many of you in the room. I've been here for 15 years, so I consider myself fortunate in that regard. For those who don't know me, I'm Aaron Krasnow. I'm Associate Vice President and Director for ASU's Health and Counseling Services. That's for all the campuses, so hello, everybody. I was the Dean of Students on the Polytechnic campus for 4 years as well. I've been in a lot of different places at the university, and it's my pleasure to serve in this role right now, administratively responsible for the healthcare services at the university. As you might know, we have quite a robust health and counseling set of services at ASU. We have health clinics and counseling clinics on all 4 campuses. Last year we did about 62,000 visits in the health services and about 25,000 visits in the counseling center, so quite a bit of business. About 35 to 40% of students will use us in any given year. I recently ran some data. At any given year of graduation, that student who graduates has a 50 to 60% chance of using our service at least once during their career. So we're a big part of the university, and we manage all certain aspects of the services. The thing I was asked to talk about is particularly complicated. To quote somebody who knew health care insurance was so complicated. But the answer is all of us. And in regard, what happens is the Arizona Board of Regents pools student buying power and has a available health insurance plan for purchase by individual students and by the universities. And so this plan currently enrolls about 21,000 students across the 3 universities. ASU has about 11,500 of those students, sometimes pushing 12,000 of the students who are part of what's currently our vendor is Aetna, so it's Aetna Student Health Insurance. And every year we negotiate with the vendor on the rates and the coverage. It's a 5-year relationship with the company, so this is year 2 of this current 5-year cycle with Aetna. You're not locked in necessarily for 5 years, there's always outs, but it's a part of the RFP process is that we go out to bid and then companies will bid on us. We're a big player in the marketplace. In the ABOR plan is about 5% of Aetna's business. So we get quite a good service in that regard, and that leads to pretty good pricing for the most part. Our coverage for individual students tends to beat anything that they could get in the marketplace, whether they're paying themselves or, as you know, for your graduate students who are on assistantships as part of their benefits packages to have insurance coverage. One of the things that comes up regularly, because you as faculty and your colleagues will likely hear about it first, is for those graduate students who have partners or dependents, and what kinds of coverage is available for them through the universities. Currently in the ABOR plan, it's an individual plan only, and which means only that student themselves. And there is no add-on or rider that you can attach to this individual coverage. So for those students who have a partner or who have dependents and need coverage, we invite them to come talk to us. We have a very easy email address as well. It's insurance@asu.edu. Luckily, there wasn't like a professor insurance out there that got it first. So thank you. And so we got that first, and people can just email us with particulars. The vagaries in the marketplace of insurance relative to adding on things is so many that it's difficult to say, like, this is exactly what it's going to cost. A lot of it depends on what an individual would want to add on for their dependent or their partner. Healthcare costs being what they are, and those are increasing, it is quite expensive to go to the marketplace for any kind of coverage. So our buying power is for individuals, and then we help people on an individual basis. Many of you have been here a while, and you may have had students who have been here a few years. We had a dependent coverage option, part of the insurance plan as recently as 4 years ago. That went away 3 years ago in the plan from 3 years ago. I can give a little background on that. As healthcare costs started to rise, the coverage for dependents started to become, had an influence on the overall price that was starting to not work well for the constituents who give feedback on this. And those constituents are, of course, us in health services across 3 universities, the respective graduate colleges, representatives from the International Students Services Group, because international students have mandatory insurance coverage requirements, and that means they buy our health insurance unless they're sponsored by a government. So there's still the majority of international students have to have our insurance. That's true across all 3 universities. So that constituent group, and then of course the students, the graduate and undergraduate student government. So all these groups weigh in together, give us advice about that. All of that advice kind of goes into the hopper, and then we make respective recommendations to our vice presidents, who then give feedback, approve, don't approve, and then that goes to the Board of Regents for approval. That's on our current rates are on the docket for this upcoming plan, and so I can't release that yet. There'll be an increase. It'll be a modest increase. All of this to say, at the time, the estimated cost increase per enrollee, not per person with dependent, was $150 more to the premium. And that's because, according to the Affordable Care Act, and it's a little confusing right now whether this is going to hold, but according to the Affordable Care Act at the time and the insurance rules, you couldn't separate out dependent coverage from a plan with dependent coverage from an independent plan. It all had to be pooled together. So you had $150 increase in premium going across 20,000 people. At the last year of insurance enrollment, 280 students had dependents on the plan. So the calculus that went in was we have 280 students who are using the service, basically the coverage for their dependent, and the $150 per person premium would be spread across 20,000 people. Each year we recalculate this. The cost of dependent care is going up. The current estimates, we haven't run the particular number because every time we bring this up with the constituents groups, there's no tolerance for spreading that out across 21,000 people at this point. But we're pushing 2 to 3 times what it was 3 years ago for dependent coverage. So that premium would then be passed on to the entire group. And that's our current circumstance in American medical industrial complex. In health insurance, is that it's the pooling that keeps the price and the coverage at it where it is, and then in that pooling, any vagaries that you do that covers a smaller group of people is then spread across the whole thing. This is quite challenging, of course, for any student who has a partner or dependent and wants to be covered. For international students who have a partner or dependent, one of the least expensive ways that we help them respond to this is to look at the kinds of coverage that they want, and often travel plans are enough, and those are very low cost and don't have strict enrollment periods. And then if someone gets very ill, if they're from a country where the healthcare is accessible to them, then they work that out in terms of traveling back and forth, assuming that they can do that on their visa. So there's so many different inputs in this regard. For domestic graduate students, this is a very tough spot. And this is often where it comes up in the conversations with all of you, and this is what led to the conversation with us, which was we were hearing more and more from faculty and from deans of colleges about, I have a graduate student, he's got a child, I've got a graduate student, she has a partner, they want coverage. The individual plan that's covered by their TA shift doesn't allow for adding this on. What is their options? And so we've solved each of those on an individual basis, but it is true that that is additional cost to the individual. One other point of nuance, and then certainly I'm open to questions. I can't imagine anybody would have a question after all this, is that the decision on how much financially to cover for a graduate student is, of course, made by the schools themselves. Right? And so that's a confusion sometimes to the students. They're like, well, the school gives me this much money and pays for this plan. I can't afford this additional amount. And the answer from us in the healthcare is like, I don't know what to tell you, but let's see if what we can figure it out. We don't have additional funds to give to that graduate student to cover the cost of that. What we do is we maintain lists of available plans in the marketplace depending on that person's financial ability, and then often that student will go back to their home program and talk about other ways of getting financial support, if any. And so that's something that sometimes gets confused. I'll offer one little editorial. I've already made 2 joke editorials, but this is a real one. In our current healthcare system, there's challenges for students who for the first time may be experiencing the realities of a society that does not perfectly endow health care coverage as part of their opportunities as a citizen. And so the experience sometimes is everything else seems to be taken care of for me. Why isn't this one taken care of for me at the university? And this is when it becomes, that's not unique to health insurance, but this is sometimes when it becomes most acute because, of course, they're often dealing either with a personal health care condition or a family member's health care, and then, of course, is quite personal. And so our approach to this is I can't protect you fully from the vagaries of the world as it relates to coverage and cost, but I can give you as much information as possible and help navigate those systems. Recently, ASU Health Services hired 2 insurance navigators whose whole job is to make sure that we find the coverages that people need in addition to what they might otherwise have, and to make sure that they're referred to services that either they're covered by for their insurance, and that's not just the ABOR insurance, but any insurance, or have self-pay rates that they can afford. So we just decided to invest in 2 additional people because we know how difficult it is out there, and so this is a service to students. So with that.
Do we have questions from Polly on this?
I do have a question, actually. It seems like 3 years ago when this big change happened, we lost the coverage for the dependents for graduate students. So is that the Affordable Care Act basically the reason for that, or there is some other reasons? Because we're talking about young people who basically are mostly healthy, it seems paradoxical that we have to pay so much more for them.
Yep. So the dependent coverage is a function of the intersection of rising healthcare costs and some healthcare law change. The tricky part about dependent coverage and why it's so expensive is if you have dependent coverage, you will use it. And so health insurance companies are in the profit business, not the nonprofit business. And so the way they set their prices is on likely use. And so one of the reasons we can keep our health insurance rates as low as they are, and last year they were $1,875 for the year. I don't know if anybody's ever been in the marketplace before, but for that level of coverage that we provide, that's about 1/3 the price, is that college students and graduate students in the vast majority are healthy. And they're not active consumers for the most part of ongoing healthcare costs, but children are. And when you look for a partner to cover, it's typically because that partner is likely to use it. So, and remember, I'm the messenger, not the insurance company executive. So what this is called it's called adverse selection, and I'm sorry. Adverse selection means you're likely to use it, which then changes the rate of, thank you for the compassionate smile at me. You're likely to use it, which then raises the cost on the insurance company. Their actuaries then bake that potential into the future pricing. And so if any of you have children, you are likely to use the insurance for your children because children's vaccinations, they get sick, all sorts of things. And that's why that tiny group of people, 280 across of all of ABOR, about 160 at ASU, have such a wide impact on the overall cost. The estimated difference for just the college's cost of paying for individual care versus dependent care in that year would have been $600,000. And that was at that price. And so that's when all this went into. So you're right, in general, for students themselves as individuals, they're relatively healthy, but for their children, they're going to use the insurance.
Any more, Polly? Okay, downtown?
Didn't sound like an answer to me.
Downtown?
No questions downtown.
Okay, west?
No questions from west.
Okay. I think we have somebody coming up to the mics here.
Yeah, I have a 3-part question.
Okay.
The travel insurances, they are usually short-term, right? Most of our graduate students come here for 5 years, 6 years. So how does the travel insurance work for them?
Yeah, so travel insurance tends to be short-term. You can buy it for as long as you want. So you can buy it at any point, and you can set it for any period you want. And so if you have a dependent or a partner that you want to put on travel insurance, usually it's a monthly. It can be even shorter than that for some plans.
And do you sell them?
We don't sell it, but we direct people to all sorts of different options based on the coverage that they want. but we don't sell travel insurance.
Okay, and so from our point of view, our main problem is when we are trying to hire graduate students. And often that's the reason they don't come.
Yeah.
And at least, last 2-3 days, because we used to have, last 2-3 years, before that we used to have this coverage.
Yep.
So if they have questions, could we send them to you when we are trying to negotiate with them about trying to come?
Sure. You can. What we do is we'd give them options. We wouldn't be able to change the insurance circumstance, but we can give them options about what's available as they do that. We have heard that before about impact on recruitment, and that if they're at another university or other those things. One of the things that, as we've dug into that with Dean Tillis and I have looked at those things, is that there's a lot of variability in what other universities are providing relative to the kind of coverage. And so, for example, there's ways to change the type of coverage so that you could add in dependents, but the coverage for the individual group would be so bad, so you could lower the cost for adding it, but then you'd have $1,500 deductibles, which is basically not having insurance. And so in that regard, we've tried to run the calculation, which then makes the sticker price for the colleges lower, but the impact on everybody greater, and that's really good. But any student is welcome to contact us. You can refer them directly to us, and we can help them figure out what might be best for them, all things considered.
And the final question is, the health clinic, that can anybody go? So in other words, the dependents, could they go there if they are sick, whether or not they have the Aetna coverage?
Yeah, so we provide healthcare services for ASU students. And so not for dependents and not for spouses. If somebody brought their kid in, we'd help them. We'd figure something out. But part of the engagement with students about these things is also figuring out, okay, where do you live? Who's the pediatrician near you? So we try and provide a full concierge service in that regard so that students aren't just waiting till someone's sick, panicking in that regard. We try and do as much pre-work as possible, and that's what those navigators are helping us do, so that either whether you're a new consumer, because this is just brand new for you from your age, or you're from a country where this was a different medical circumstance, we're just trying to make sure that everybody approaches this in the best way they care for them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay.
This issue of dependent coverage is very crucial for me personally, because I have 5 PhD students, and out of them, 3 of them have dependents.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I doubt is that your number of 280, maybe it is because students don't know that they can enroll their dependent somehow. So in fact, in my 12 years here, all my students have never had coverage for their dependents. So I think, and one other thing that I thought maybe you could try something like this, that buy like 400 vouchers for dependents from the company, instead of having everybody provide dependent coverage, but have some vouchers so they are easier and cheaper to spread around.
Okay, so I'll take both of those. I appreciate that. The first one was about the number of people with dependents in the environment and who might have do that. If we added more people to the insurance coverage dependents, the price would actually go up, not down, because every one of those people would adverse do that. Again, I'm not editorializing whether that's good or not, but that is the circumstance that we're in right now. The thing about vouchers, and this is I'm not going to weigh in and make any decisions for your deans. So what we are is we're the managers of the health insurance product, and we negotiate the rates based on the feedback that we've got. Any additional funding or support that any college wants to provide to their student to pay for any other benefit is up to that college. And so if a college came to us and said we wanted to subsidize additional service coverage or any of these types, then they would talk to us about that. We're the managers of the service. We are not the insurance provider in that regard. What we have done more recently is we've entered into a handshake partnership with Mountain Park Health Center, which has clinics all over the valley who provide very low-cost service. They're funded through a number of revenue streams, through grants and other aid, and they're often able to provide very low-cost service for adults and children. And so that relationship has helped us as people come in, if they're having difficulty either affording coverage or otherwise, we move them into service there. In Tempe, it's within a mile and a half. There's one near the West Campus, one near the downtown campus, and we're working on pushing them to develop a clinic near the Polytechnic campus. In this regard, we're able to through our relationships, kind of guide people in that direction. That's been particularly good for students who are of low income for whatever reason, and for undocumented students who, for whatever reason, want to use healthcare services but want to do it without having a more established record. They can come in, pay a very low price, and kind of get their service in that moment. And so whether they get it from us, which is always okay, or from Mountain Park, we're just trying to make it all work. Okay.
Thanks very much.
All right, thank you. Thanks. Thank you.
And our final speaker today, informational speaker, is Amy. Sorry, I've got that wrong. Sylvia, excuse me, I apologize. Etchemundi. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Sylvia Etchemundi. I work with United Blood Services. We're the local blood provider for blood here in Arizona. We are the largest provider of blood, actually, in Arizona. And we're located in your backyard. We're located right off of 64th Street and Oak, kind of near the Phoenix Zoo. We service hospitals in 28 states. So I have 5 minutes, and I promise to take less, to share with you a little bit about our connection with ASU. Well, we've been partnering with ASU for many, many years. Some of you may be blood donors yourselves. We set up blood drives on blood mobiles and inside some of the different colleges here, some of the different buildings. We've had a number of successful blood drives already with various groups, fraternities, sororities, residence halls, and colleges on all 4 campuses over the years. And the way I met Pam Hoyle, actually, she was donating blood at a blood drive on Orange Mall with the Graduate College. It was successful, and she enthusiastically took on the role to be the blood drive coordinator. We're going to be having a blood drive on April 4th, sponsored by the Faculty Senate, and we'll get into the details of that a little bit later. But I'll give you a little bit of history about myself, too. In the year 2000, I was graduating from ASU. I actually started working with United Blood Services as an intern, recruiting donors, students into the blood drives around campus. And this year I'm back here, and I'd like to re-spark the enthusiasm and re-spark, student interest in getting them involved in the blood drives on campus. Getting students to donate blood, just like getting anybody to donate blood, is like pulling teeth. A lot of times I'm finding that students are engaged more with the technology, and because of this, it's a little more difficult to engage with them, connect with them. Some of the prime spots on campus that we've used in the past are no longer available. For example, when I was a student, we used to park a blood mobile right in front of the MU, or hold the blood drive where the Starbucks is now. So the infrastructure is changing exponentially, and finding places to really have a blood drive that's successful with a lot of foot traffic is difficult. So those are some of our difficulties. But successful blood drives, just like fast-selling real estate, have 3 words in common: location, location, location. So the reason I'm sharing all of this with you today is I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm passionate about the cause and working with Arizona State University again. And some statistics are that every 2 seconds someone needs blood. 38% of the population is eligible to donate blood, and only 5% does. The need to have a healthy blood supply is never going to go away. Blood is needed to help people live, and that's the bottom line. There was a slide behind me, I believe, showing the different collections on the different campuses, and you can see 80,000, students, and the numbers. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of potential here. There's a lot of opportunity. And when we talk about, like here in Tempe, 1,277 donations, that's units of blood. So each person, when they donate blood, they donate a unit, a pint of blood, and the water bottles here, that's about a pint. So every person has anywhere from 12 to 14 pints of blood. Some of you know all these things, but there's a lot of growth. And I'm going to ask just two things of you, if I may. There's a blood drive here on April 4th happening. It will be from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on the second floor of the MU in the co-chief's room. And if you'd like to donate blood or can just get the information out to your units about the blood drive, it's open to all faculty, staff, students. And second, if you know anyone that is interested in organizing a blood drive within your unit, if we can have a blood mobile or even set up inside a room where there's a lot of foot traffic, please get in touch with me, and I would love to do that. And in closing, the number one reason why people do not give blood is because no one ever asks them. So getting in front of people, I think just like with any volunteer activity, you just have to ask people to give. The more people that are reached, the greater the chance that someone will say yes and that you'll have a successful blood drive. So thank you for organizing and having the blood drive on April the 4th and for letting me talk to you a little bit about it. And I hope to have the opportunity to work with some of you in your units or some of your departments in the future. Are there any questions?
Anybody have questions at the other campuses? Anybody? Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, now you have to listen to me. So I think things are going downhill. But anyway, the Senator Spotlight for the month is Amy Schinnebarger out at the Poly campus. Amy is a ASU grad, as you can see, and she works in interdisciplinary humanities and communications. And we can say, she said, it has allowed me to see how the university functions beyond the department program level and to realize just how big we actually are, and I can say amen to that. Senate leadership will be attending the ABOR meetings next week down in Tucson. One of the things that is going on is that the various universities have gotten together and they're looking at a free speech policy that we're proposing to the Board of Regents. If somebody has a particular idea about that, I'm happy to take some input offline. Not today, exactly. The Online Education Task Force surveys have come in. We have over 600 responses, so thank you very much to everybody who did that. We're in the process of analyzing those. If anybody has specific questions they think could be answered based on those online responses, please let us know. You're welcome to email me or Jim Moore or Donna Cataldo. We're all working on this. Senate committees will have their reports out before the next meeting. There are a number of initiatives that are going on. Most of those are being handled other than by policy, and I think you'd find a number of them very interesting. Thurman is going to talk about the facilities issues later in this meeting. Academic integrity, we'll have another meeting tomorrow, and we believe that has gotten in front of the provost, so we're interested to hear exactly what that's going to come out to. There are 37 outgoing senators who need to be replaced this year. Those elections should be going on right now, and if they are in your unit, we would ask you to inform us of who the new persons are. By the way, terms for those senators begin in August. We have continuing to work on the safety and security issues that were presented at the last meeting. I had a meeting with those folks this morning. We're looking at ways to probably organize a variety of hands-on and video trainings. There is also a video being produced that should be done, we hope, by the first of the next semester. And that one, again, looks to be using actual classroom examples. Again, if you have any concerns on the security issues, and I know there are a lot of them because I've been hearing from a number of people about that, please let us know. Campus presidents will be up for election in April. We have a number of contests. Chris is working very hard on that, and we would ask you to vote on those kinds of things. I know in particular the Tempe campus presidency is up for competition. The Office of University Initiatives is hosting a social embeddedness network conference. That's on Friday, April 6th, out at the West Campus from 9 to 4, excuse me. I'll read the actual wording here. The conference is designed to bring together engaged scholars to connect across disciplines and share best practices and strategies for effective and mutually beneficial university-community relationships. The link will be up after the meeting, in case you want to RSVP for that. Having spent a fair amount of time out on the West Campus, I can tell you it's comfortable, so that's a good thing. Anybody have any questions about the report, my report? Anybody? Polly? No? Downtown?
No questions down here.
Wes?
No questions.
Okay. All right. And in that case, we are done with that, and it's time for Caroline to talk about new CAPC motions, first read.
The following motions and proposals will be taken up at the CAPC meeting this Thursday, 3/29, and then will be brought back to the Senate for a vote at our next meeting on April 23rd. As always, if you have any questions, concerns, suggestions, please get them to me, preferably before Thursday, so we can make sure that they are addressed at the meeting. And certainly let us know before the next Senate meeting so we can make sure that all parties that have an interest can be represented. The items in Appendix A will be brought up at the CAPC meeting and not brought before the Senate, so please make sure if you've got any concerns or suggestions or questions to get those to me by Thursday morning. Okay. So to start off with, a request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, School of International Letters and Cultures for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Spanish language pedagogy. Request from the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, School of Historical, Philosophical, and Religious Studies for the establishment of a graduate program, MA in World War II Studies. Request from the College of Health Solutions, Department of Speech and Hearing Science for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Communication Disorders in Multilingual Multicultural Populations. Request from the College of Health Solutions, Department of Speech and Hearing Science for the establishment of a graduate program, MS in Auditory and Language Neuroscience. Request from the College of Health Solutions, School of Nutrition and Health Promotion for the establishment of a graduate program, MS in Medical Nutrition. Request from the College of Integrative Sciences and Arts, Ira A. Fulton Schools of Engineering, Polytechnic School for the establishment of a graduate program, MS in User Experience. Request from the College of Nursing and Health Innovation for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Acute Care Pediatric Nurse Practitioner. Request from the College of Nursing and Health Innovation, graduate programs for the establishment of a graduate program, MS in Interprofessional Care Coordination. Request from the College of Public Service and Community Solutions, School of Criminology and Criminal Justice for the establishment of an undergraduate certificate, Correctional Studies. Request from the College of Public Service and Community Solutions, School of Social Work for the establishment of an undergraduate certificate, Domestic Violence and Evidence-Based Practice. Request from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication for the establishment of a graduate certificate, Digital Audiences. Request from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication for the establishment of a graduate program, MS in Digital Audience Strategy.
Thank you very much. So again, if you have concerns on any of those things, please get them to the Committee on Academic Planning and Curriculum and Planning as soon as possible. They'll be meeting Thursday. First item of old business, as usual, is the new course proposal agenda that was distributed on the 12th. That comes under a consent agenda, so let me ask if anybody has any reason to pull any of those courses off the consent agenda. Anywhere downtown?
None from downtown, thank you.
West?
No.
Polly?
Nothing, no.
And I don't see anybody here at Tempe, so with that, let's go ahead and vote. Okay, our numbers have gone up, that's good. Yeah. As you can see, it's 81. This really is consent today. Okay. So we have 81 yes, no, 0 no's, and 2 abstentions. So thank you very much. The consent agenda is approved. Next, we would ask Dan McCarville to talk about the committee motions that he has from the committee.
Good afternoon. We have 2 motions that are to be voted on. They were read last time. One of the motions was to require the provost office to create a policy or that would enable us to identify policies within our programs, to determine coverage for TAs and courses and so forth. That was RFC 150. I don't know what the proposal was. I guess that's coming up. And Chuck, you got it up there? It's it. Oh, it's on. There it is. Yeah. So basically, it is the resolution whereas classes have become larger in many units without a corresponding rise in course support, graders, and TAs. And whereas transparency and allocation of course support has created inequities and inconsistencies among faculty and graduate student teachers. Whereas, and I guess you guys can kind of read that, be it resolved that the University Senate of Arizona State University, representing all faculty members and academic professionals, recommends that the provost require all units across the university to work with their faculty to create written policies regarding course enrollment limits in their unit. The provost require all units across the university work with their faculty to create written policies regarding allocations of the course support, graders and TAs for these units.
We actually call for a vote, right?
Okay. Open for discussion. The West Campus. Nothing?
Yes. We do, but we have all these strange ways to, the microphones are awkward. So we do have a question, yes.
Are we on? Are we live?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Mary Donaldson. I represent the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences. And I was just wondering exactly to what level of, I don't want to say micromanagement because that has a bad connotation, but what do you mean by develop policies? What type of policies are you talking about? Do you have guidance in mind? I just know that the people who take care of all the stuff around our unit are already pretty stressed out and have a hard time dealing with all this, so having an extra layer of demand, really, from the provost's office will probably make them more stressed out. So I'm just not exactly sure what you hope to make happen here. Is there some unfair practices that have been going on that need to be stopped? Is that what this is about?
That was the original request from some faculty who had requested we bring this up within our committee, that there's certain inequities, some with the growth of classes and programs and so forth, that some programs are not supporting consistently the support of graders and TAs.
Okay, so is the kind of policy that you're asking for then something general like we want to make sure that this is a fair process and the provost says it has to be fair, or are you talking about getting down to the, like, you can't have any more than 60 people in your class? Do you understand the kind of question I'm trying to ask?
I believe so, and I think one of the concerns about trying to do this as a campus-wide or university-wide type of policy and actually putting it on the departments to determine their own is that we all have somewhat different requirements. We have different types of labs, different types of TA requirements, and so forth. So the thought was that more at the unit level, you know, the department level, so to speak, or the program level, that we could probably come up with a reasonable policy amongst ourselves that would try to ensure some fairness and equity and support within our program.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
The Poly campus.
No questions here.
Let's see, we did Poly, we did West. Downtown.
No questions here, thank you.
Okay. Tempe campus? Call for vote? Yeah.
So let me go ahead and call for a vote then on the resolution. Chuck, could you put it back up? Well, I see. Just that'll be fine. Sorry? The motion, yeah, why don't you put the motion back up and everybody can understand, and then if you would, please. Okay, so there's the motion, and either yay or nay. So now one more to go. Okay, we have 85 so far. I think we can probably call it, Chuck. Okay, as you can see, the resolution passes. We will ask the provost to do that. Thank you. Okay, Dan, you're up for the next one.
Okay, the next one, and I think Chuck's going to put that one up as well, right? So this is was a proposal to make a few modifications to our syllabus requirements, and I know that that's not something that we all find horribly favorably. You know, not like we all want to make longer syllabi, silly buses. I call them silly buses, but the point is that there are a couple of thoughts that one item that we probably ought to mandate, and that is every semester we get a notice from the provost's office to add Title IX wording to our syllabus. And clearly there are legal requirements and ramifications associated with that, and there's actually other policies that kind of point to this, but we don't check for it and so forth. So one of our proposals was to add the Title IX requirements, which is change 1. You know, add the requirement on ACD 304-10. That's the syllabi. I'm going to say that for the rest of my life. Policy, but basically policy on sexual discrimination is described in ACD 401, prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, including the fact that the instructor is a mandated reporter and therefore obligated to report any information regarding alleged acts of sexual discrimination. So this has been, again, this is I think one that we've been somewhat required to do anyway. We're just trying to make it apparent in our policy on writing syllabi. Change number 2, it's just a warning to students that they must refrain from uploading to any course shell, discussion board, or website used by the course instructor or any other course forum material that is not the student's original work, unless the student first comply with all applicable copyright laws. Faculty members reserve the right to delete materials on grounds of suspected copyright infringement. So that's recommended as well. I think a number of us have experienced that firsthand. Change number 3, in the third paragraph from the bottom. So this is in the policy. It's a rather, if you guys have read the policy, it's quite a long one that's got a lot of items that, of course, we're supposed to have. But in the third paragraph from the bottom, replace existing language. The instructor may want to state that the course content, including lectures, are copyrighted materials. Students may not share outside the class, upload, sell, or distribute course content or notes taken during the conduct of the course. Commercial note-taking services, for more information, there's another policy about that. So this is kind of, I believe, one of those more optional items for us to include, but recommended. And then change number 4 is after that third paragraph, add the following statement. The instructor may want to place on each page or online equivalent, so pages, websites, and so forth, of any of our documents, of all instructional materials provided to be made available to students, the following statement. This content is protected and may not be shared, uploaded, sold, or distributed. That was wording that our legal folks at ASU had worked out with Course Hero. If you guys know who Course Hero is, students go to that site to publish a lot of our material. So if we put that on there, Course Hero won't post it. So that was kind of at least their commitment, or at least we'll bring it down if observed. Okay, so these are recommendations as well.
Okay, is there any discussion again? Let's start with Polly. Anything at Polly?
Just one simple question. Are we going to vote for each of those changes separately?
No, this will be, this is one resolution. Yes, up or down. Any questions beyond that? Anything else? Okay, downtown?
No questions here, thank you.
Okay, west?
No questions.
Anything at Tempe?
One comment. I just want to say about the copyright, you don't have to do that. That's not something that they're saying thou shalt do. It's just, these are, the last 2 items were suggestions. So we're going to put it in the policy as you know, kind of strong suggestions that you think about these things.
Okay, then I'm going to call for the vote, please. Yeah, go ahead, Chuck. You can close it. The motion passes. 75 yes, 5 no, 3 abstentions. Thank you. Dan, do you want your? The next step is the CAPC consent agenda on the old business side. And I will introduce Caroline Harrison again for that.
The following proposals were approved at the last CAPC meeting on March 1st. A request from the College of Health Solutions, School for the Science of Healthcare Delivery, for the establishment of a graduate degree, Master of International Health Management. Request from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, BS in Digital Audiences. Request from the College of Public Service and Community Solutions, School of Community Resources and Development for the establishment of an undergraduate degree, BS in Recreation Therapy. and a request from the School for the Future of Innovation in Society for the establishment of a graduate program, PhD in Innovation in Global Development.
Once again, this is a consent agenda item. Can we call for the vote, please? Oh. Sorry? Oh, yes. Oh, even though I thought it was an old business situation, but yes. Does anyone have any reason to pull one of these items off the consent agenda for further discussion? Once again, West?
No.
Downtown?
No.
Holly?
No.
Seeing none at Tempe, I think we can go ahead and have the vote. I think we have a little attrition, but that's okay. Go ahead, Chuck. So the consent agenda is approved, 77 for, 1 against, 2 abstentions. Okay, the next 2 items on the agenda are committee reports. I'd like Shirley Rose to talk about the General Education Work Group.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a scratchy throat. I'm going to keep this report very short. This is a progress report only, and because we can give only a general outline of the direction that our work is taking, although it does seem we're moving very fast. The task force was established by Senate President Arnie Maltz, and it has a representation of all campuses and across disciplines. We've met 3 times to review the current general studies program design and initiatives in the past to revise it and to discuss our own possible revisions. We've decided to build on the excellent work of the 2013 Next Gen Ed Committee. That report proposed a design that would develop general studies competencies in inquiry, collaboration, innovation, and engagement, rather than developing content-dependent knowledge, and one that would be organized around themes rather than around subject area distributions. The task force is proposing that the university conduct a small-scale pilot of the new design, and that this pilot would begin next year and take a proof of concept approach that evaluates effectiveness before scaling up. And even for the foreseeable long term, we would anticipate leaving the current general studies structure in place as an option for students who transfer in and others for whom the new thematic and competency-based approach would not be appropriate. Since this Gen Ed review is a university initiative, we're proposing that at this time, the formal review be done by the UAC to authorize a pilot, and that a more elaborate review of the design wait until the design is finished. If there's interest, we are proposing that we schedule a forum before the end of the semester when our design could be looked at by any senators or any other faculty who are interested. And again, since this is a progress report only, I'm going to ask that we save questions and comments until the forum itself.
Thank you, Shirley. Once again, the General Education Task Force is under the sponsorship of the Provost. Fred Corey is the head of that. They have been working very quickly. We have a number of representatives on that task force, and I know that's of interest to a lot of people. Almost anybody who's teaching undergraduates is going to be interested in that task force. I'm sure that the forum will be put together. I can't guarantee that we'll get it done by the end of the semester, but certainly, if not then, very early in the fall, so that everybody can have some input. The other committee report is from Thurman Lockhart. I'm going to ask him to come on up.
Hello, everyone. If you remember, our committee was assigned to look into several different areas, several different items of interest related to facilities and services, mainly lactation rooms, parking lot dark spots in parking lots, as well as some cleanliness and maintenance issues. So let's go ahead and look into the lactation room. This is what we find out so far. As you can see here, ASU is like really, really low. Actually, not low, but very low. So we have about 6 designated areas, whereas the other university, for example, University of Iowa, has 48. Number of female faculty per single lactation room, 10 versus 269. That's what we have. So I would definitely seems like we need to do something about it. So we're writing a memo and then sending out to appropriate entities. And by the way, these 6 rooms are just designated. And here I do hear that there are some informal rooms available within the department. So those are not counted here. Okay. So let's go into the dark zone. So far, what we have done was a polytechnique, and we looked at about 17 parking lots there. We have completed the West Campus as well. There was 7 parking lots there. And usual guideline, and we measured it around at 7 p.m. to about 8:30 p.m. Various days. And the usual guideline is approximately 2 lux to about 4 lux, or 0.2 foot candles or 4 foot candles. So in this case here, you can see various parking lot within the Polytech campus was now within the standard. So we're incorporate this into our report and send it out to everyone, and more importantly to the appropriate individual who could make some changes. Okay, and another area that we were interested in was the maintenance issue. Basically, we didn't know what kind of services we're getting. I mean, basic things like how many times, does your trash get emptied per week? Is it once a week, twice a week? It appears there's no congruence. Everybody has a different set of rules, it appears, and somebody. So we actually went in, dive deep, and asked some questions. But it appears that now what they're going to have is a building liaison type of program, where we could, there's a central character where we could actually go and ask questions and possibly complain and these kind of things. So this is actually very timely. This is Wednesday. So if you're interested about that, go over there and listen in and what that liaison program is all about. I think that help us out a lot. I think the last issue that we're looking at was the safety video issue. Active shooter responses and things like that. Currently, I think they're creating a video, a training video, about 5-minute training video for us. They're beginning to film that, and then I think they'll come back to us and ask for comments and feedback, and then go back to our faculty members. So that's basically all I have. Thank you guys very much.
Thanks very much, Thurman. I appreciate it. They've done a lot of good work over on that committee. It's fun to go to the committee meeting and you hear all the things that are happening. But anyway, with that, I think we can do open forum. Does anybody have anything that they want to speak to? I believe we have somebody coming to the mic.
Jim Lyons, CC. Could you put that info session information back up?
Oh, okay. The liaison information? Can we put that back up, Chuck? There we go. And I assume, do we know if that's being streamed or if other people have to come in? We know about that? Okay, so I think we'll just have to check on that and try to get it out to people, find out for the other campuses. On campus by campus, so there will be options at the other campuses as well. Okay, we don't know what you know what the schedule is offhand? Okay, well, so look for it on your campus or a campus near you, as they say. Okay, anything else for open forum at the other campuses? Do I see a hand? Just put up your hand if you have a question. I don't see anything at downtown. Polly? West? Just for your information, there was a question from West about what's going on at Maricopa Community College District. We're still investigating that. Anybody else?
Thanks.
Well, with that, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.